Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake lie or imagination. So you can use the word Sattology instead of mythology for Ramayana and Mahabharat. You can use the word stop when you use the word mythology, you're telling everybody that it's a lie. When I use the word biblical mythology, all the followers of Christianism, Islamism, they cry. So why use the mythology word for Sanatan Dharma or Native American cultures, native cultures all over the world? So because they are also truth. In fact, shamanism, I'm going to have the first session with some people to learn what it is in coming weeks. So without delay, let us get started. Let's welcome my very good friend, and I call him a great teacher, Acharya, Rishi, Muni. People don't like those adjectives, but I mean it. So let us welcome Nilesh Nilkant Oak.
Namaskar Aditya happy to be here.
Nilesh, one thing I really like, you have encouraged so many people. In some people in a very favorable way, some people very unfavorable way, but in any case, it's encouraged. So, and also new authors are coming up under your guidance, which is phenomenal. Like Jeevan Rao's book Yuganta, which is a beautifully. I mean, I saw the cover. I don't have the book, but I will order it. I promised him to order it. I'll order it. So today, what's happening with the attacks on the yoga communities, Hindus, and in the name of skin color, there are a lot of British Hindus, a lot of American Hindus who don't have the brown skin, and but attacks are happening. So should anybody be fearful of anything, any of these attacks?
Well, people's natural response, of course, would be of be feeling scared and fear. Uh, at the same time, anyone who considers oneself a student, a seeker of Sanatana Dharma or Hindu Dharma cannot be fearful, or should not be fearful, ought not to be fearful. That is not to take away the natural human response. For example, I mean, the whole animal kingdom, and we should include ourselves, uh, immediately the first reaction to anything is actually comes from an instinct. Okay. And then it may change, it may take a different path. Then it may be emotion and it may be reasoning, or uh, usually that's the path. Now, among the animals, you will find the ability to feel the emotion or ability to reason something is there, but it's not as evolved as it is in human beings. Aditya I should make a very clear point though. I mean, you have a Surabhi cow there and you have your Dhanusha, and now you have added the horse. You will find when you spend time with them that actually many times these Mooka animals will show more emotion and more reasoning skills than human beings. Okay. So when I'm talking on an average. As an average response, the human beings are expected, they are capable, but they are expected to show more emotional ability and more reasoning ability. And now the fear or the all kinds of what do you say, instant responses, the different responses that we see, they are actually a combination of this. Sometimes comes some of them come from pure instinct, nothing more. Others comes from emotion, other comes from reasoning, and they can come from the combination of this. But also important, instinct is understandable, right? Suddenly, like, you hear a big loud noise and you just go, what happened? That's kind of an instinct, you even don't know. But after that, do you go for a reasoning first, why this is happening, or do you just go for emotion, like one specific instance in, say, UK, or one specific instance somewhere in America, and you just get into like responding to that? Or you get into reasoning and actually see the bigger picture, what is the bigger agenda, maybe, of either side, behind it, and what should be our response? So to answer your question, there is no reason for a fear. However, when we see people fearful, we should also recognize that it is because of one of these. Like somebody, they may be simply responding out of an instinct. with no ability to do to apply the reasoning skills.
See, the nobody likes the bully, however powerful you are.
Mhm.
Throughout the world, people have acted against the bullies. It has happened with nation states. It has happened with even USA many times, where the smaller countries like Afghanistan have stood up to them. And the peaceful people, their response is always, I'm talking about the really peaceful people, not the peaceful sloganeers. I'm saying the peaceful people like Hindus and Buddhists, their response is always very measured and very decisive. That's why the culture of Hindus have survived. And and I was really shocked that after all this vandalism which took place against Hindu temples in UK and Canada, Jai Shri Ram was chanted very loudly. And
Mhm.
again from the same streets went out. And the police forces of UK and USA is not involved yet, but the police forces of UK and Canada, they were mute spectators tolerating terrorism. And they were the people who spread misinformation in the first place. So the problem is theirs now, not ours, because we are dependent on Bhagwan Ram to protection, but they are dependent on their own self for protection. So the response is disproportionate, and the resolve is much stronger. And then I am proud to say Jai Shri Ram on this show. If
Mhm.
British are watching, please take it. And if you don't want to take it now, we want to make the whole Britain as Sanatan Dharmi, because now our resolve is even more stronger. The more attacks happen, and this has happened in India also, the hooligans and the gundas, they attack and the Hindus defend. But the world knows that defense is the best offense. The world knows,
Mhm.
it is a historical effect. We cannot run away from historical lessons, actually, just like we cannot run away from facts, basic facts.
Yeah.
So, Nilesh, your view on that, and we get started immediately.
Right. Okay. Well, you said defense is the best offense. Of course, you have also heard that offense is the best defense. And of course, the offense, you said something very important there. You said the Sanatana tradition, which, I mean, you just mentioned Buddhism. We say, when we say Sanatana tradition, we just say Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, all that. We say that because those are the breaking things that the Western Europeans, Indologists have done. Otherwise, there is no difference. The
There is no difference.
Sikh is the one, you are a Sikh. Sikh is the one who has dedicated themselves to protect the Dharma. Okay.
That's right.
But the breaking of these things has happened. And so deliberately, it's been done deliberately, which you are not going to understand through emotion or instinct. One has to go through the reasoning. Something beautiful you said, that the response of a Sanatana tradition has always been measured, always been with reason, okay, and always with a proposal for a peace. And it's not to be confused. It shouldn't be confused. It's ought to be not confused by others who think somebody is calm doesn't mean therefore the person is fearful. Okay, and how the response should be, and why do the followers of Sanatana, no matter where in the world, no matter what the skin color, basically adopt a certain path? That tradition, that knowledge is very ancient, and that comes from there. In fact, if you want me to just jump into it, I'll tell you how far back it comes. Okay, so today we are going to look at, again, we have talked about Darshana Shastra a few times. Darshana Shastra is like our ability to see the world, ability to understand the world around us. And depending on the specific focus, we have a specific, sorry, let me go back. Specific Darshan Shastra. So for example, if depending on what we are studying, we may use physics or biology or chemistry or combinations of these. Darshana Shastras are like that. However, when they are not understood properly, they may be seen as one Darshan Shastra is in opposition to another Darshan Shastra, one Darshan Shastra is above certain other Darshan Shastra. That is a pure hogwash. Okay, anyone who says that does not understand what darshan shastra is. It's like saying chemistry is better than physics or biology is better than physics. No, we can say biology is more complex than physics, but there is no question of a better. Something is better. We might say physics, our understanding through physics or our understanding of physics is more evolved than our understanding of biology. That is a reasonable statement. That is a factual statement, because we are saying biology is a lot more complex than the way physics is, which is to say the way we have defined physics. Now, if you go into much deeper aspects of physics, even as simple as the hydrogen atom, like the basic electron proton, but hydrogen atom, and when you look at like a Niels Bohr's theory and all that, many people don't know that, or Schrodinger's equation applied to this. Many people don't know that you can actually understand the electron, what you call this electron spectra of a hydrogen, like a Niels Bohr, the way he explained it, when you consider one electron into the hydrogen orbit. As soon as you introduce two electrons, which is the case, H2, suddenly the model becomes so complex that now you have to get into empirical and approximations and so on. My point is, even physics can be complex and biology can be easy. Like, for example, we just eat. We are all biological creatures. We eat and we don't even think about it, and the body is taking care of it. So in that sense, it's easy. We don't need to know, because the wisdom of the body, what kind of different food you have eaten and what different types of concentrations of the hydrochloric acid needs to be generated in the stomach to digest it. So a healthy body will actually figure it out. So it depends on what context it is. In this today's discussion, Aditya ji, I want to address multiple points, and just before, when we talked, what I'm going to say, you said, oh, there will be a controversy among many folks, the seekers and followers of Hindu Dharma, Sanatana Dharma. Yeah, the controversy will be there, but again, the controversy because of the lack of knowledge. People refuse to study. People want everything spoon fed, and guess what? The spoon feeding is like a shraddha. Somebody is going to give you that. Spoon feeding is like a shraddha, to generate shraddha in you, and actually the person is trying to assist you. It is not his or her responsibility to generate shraddha in you. It is your responsibility. The person, out of kindness, is helping you. Okay, once that happens, it is a path of a seeker. You have to study. Abhyasa yoga yuktena. Arjuna says, oh yeah, this is very tough. How does one does it? And Krishna doesn't say, oh, it's not tough. Come on, man, this is easy. No, Krishna does not say that. Krishna says, yes, it is tough. I mean, which fool thinks that this is something easy or they can do it after retirement? No, this has to be done simultaneously. If any fool is thinking, once everything is done, I'm retired and then I'll do it, the person is a foolish, But it can be done. Now, some other aspects I'm going to talk about. I'm pulling one itihasa event, historical event that is described in Mahabharat. But see what Mahabharat itself is saying, and I'll show you more things. This is known as a very famous, it's known as a Janaka Sulabha Samvaad. So Janak is a king, and Sulabha is a beautiful young lady, and she is Tridandi Sannyasini. She is a Tridandi Sannyasi. She has studied with Tridandi Sannyasi, and now she herself is a Tridandi Sannyasi. Now, those people who study Mahabharata, those people who themselves are Tridandi Sannyasi ought to know this. But if they don't know it, then they need to go in a hurry to Mahabharata, Shanti Parva, and start reading Shanti Parva. If they have read it before, this time read with more care again. Okay. Now, Sannyasa Falika Kashchit. Okay. So, king there, and they are meeting together, and a sannyasi. Mythilo Janako Nama Dharma Dvaja Iti Shruta. Now, what is important is this katha, this itihasic narration, a historical narration, is done by Bhishma to Yudhishthir when Bhishma is lying on the bed of arrows. Okay, and there is a discussion going on. Actually, the discussion only happens for 6 days. Although Bhishma is on the bed of arrows for 98 days, okay? Right from the 10th day of the war all the way to the day of winter solstice. Okay, 98 days, he's just lying on the bed of arrows waiting for the day of winter solstice when the sun is going to turn northward. But the discussion that Yudhishthir and Bhishma had for only 6 days, and during this time, Yudhishthir is asking questions, various questions, all the questions. And Krishna wanted Yudhishthir to go to Bhishma and ask questions. Vyasadeva wanted Yudhishthir to go to Bhishma and ask questions. Bhishma has lived a very long life, more than 140 plus years. Okay, he has done many things, he has studied a lot, okay, and he is knowledgeable. And there in that discussion, when Yudhishthir asks a certain question, Bhishma is responding. And what a beautiful way, the best way to illustrate a point is through a particular narration, a particular contextual narration. In those of you who are in a business school, you would know much of the MBA programs, or even otherwise, you will see they are taught through case studies, actual real case studies. Sometimes the information may be modified for privacy or secrecy and whatnot, but actual case studies. A typical MBA, I don't know, every MBA program is different, but a typical MBA program will at least go through like a 40, 50 case studies these days. Okay. And this may be happening for a long time. Some MBA programs I know, actually, they will go through 100 case studies, nothing but case studies. That's how they do it. Guess what? This is not something new, guys. If you look at the entire Mahabharata discussion, everything is a case study. It is a debate, it's a conversation between two friends, conversation between two enemies, okay, conversation between a guru and a shishya, okay, conversation between, all kinds of combinations that you see, but it is all conversation, which is the style. Now, one important thing, we hear King Janak all the time. For example, if you go back 14,000 years to the time of Ramayana, then again there is a Janak, father of Sita. But that is a post, usually a king. Of course, Janak can be called as a king anywhere. But in the Indian context or ancient Indian context, the Janaka is the king of that Mithila area. Okay, now there can be many other Janaks too. But even the multiple kings of the Mithila are all called Jana, like as a title. Like here we say the president is arriving. I mean, in the American context, everyone knows if it's the president, it's the president of the United States. But we also know the company has a president, and the individual, what you call housing association has a president. But when we are using in a certain context, we know what president is being referred to. Similarly, the Janaka is understood. Now, the Janaka, who was father of Sita, his name was Siradhwaj. Now, so therefore, when we hear the historical events, either from Mahabharata, Ramayana, or other Purana texts, we have to be very careful not to just we hear the name Janak and in a very novice, foolish fashion, just quickly connect that with either Janak as a Janak, as a Sita's father or somebody else. Here, we are lucky. The name of this Janak is also given. It's not Siradhwaj. It's not from the Ramayana. His name is Dharmadhwaj. Almost like you see the tradition of the names like Siradhwaj, Dharmadhwaj, and so on. So this particular Janak his name is Dharmadhwaj. And all we know is that definitely this happened more than 8,000 years ago, this particular story, because the Mahabharata itself happened more than 7,500 years ago. And at that time, Bhishma is telling this Katha to Yudhishthir. Katha is an event, Katha is a narration. It can be a mythical narration, it can be metaphorical narration, or it can be itihasic narration. Okay, a historical event. In this case, it is a historical event. And we know, and he's saying it happened in a historical times. I'm telling you, Puratanam, Itihasa Puratanam. I don't know if I have that word. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so Bhishma is telling Yudhishthir, okay, I'm going to tell you, this is Atrapyu Udaharantim Itihasam Puratanam. I'll tell you a past incident, the way it happened. Okay, and what is that? That is known as Janakasya Samvadam Sulabhayascha Bharata. It is known as Janaka Sulabha Samvaad. I'm going to tell you about this. Okay. It was a long time ago. We don't know how long ago. It was a Dharma Yuga, it says. People were following their yoga dharma in a very proper way. That time there was one lady, okay, her name was Sulabha, and she had taken to Bhikshuki path, which is what? A mendicant in English translation, a sannyasi, okay? And she had studied under Tridandi Sannyasi. So those people, suppose, who may think Tridandi Sannyasi is a new creation of last few hundred years, or last 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 years, 4,000 years. No, now, of course, somebody sees this and more than 8,000 years ago, and somebody is still stuck into, say, the Abrahamic history, okay, the Bible-based history of a world, the whole creation happening in 4004 BC, even now, okay, which is to say they never gave up, okay, just the pure attitude of a reverence. They never turned their uh, what you call Shraddha Buddhi, which is good, a respect, a reverence for a certain text, which is great. Doesn't matter what text it is. But if you don't go from there, just like Aditya we talked about instinct. So Shraddha can be compared with the instinct, which is great to have a reverence, something that has been preserved for a long time, and to have a respect is a great thing. But after that, if you don't turn that into emotion meaning now you say, let me find out what it is, as opposed to, no, I just did a namaskar and I just walked away. Okay, then you did not go beyond instinct, which is every animal has it. So now you have an emotion, which means you feel some interaction with that text, with that individual, whoever that is. And beyond that, you have to further go to reasoning. Okay. So think of it. So the Pujya Buddhi, which is like an instinct, like the child has an instinct towards a mother. That's a Pujya Buddhi. Even child doesn't know what it is. It's just like that. Similarly, Shraddha, naturally feeling the Shraddha is good, but then it should turn into emotion. Okay, so it's like a Pujya Buddhi to Pramanya Buddhi, like become curious, Saprayojana and Sandigdha. And today we are going to see those words again, used by Vachaspati Mishra, okay, in commenting on the Brahma Sutra and whatnot. So curious, becoming curious. And how do you satisfy this curiosity? You satisfy your curiosity, you try to find the answers to the toughest questions, okay? Science or Adhyatma, Vijnan or Adhyatma, no difference in the Indian tradition. Okay, Adhyatma is a purification of Vijnan, Vijnan is a purification of Adhyatma. They go hand in hand. And exactly today, that's what we are going to see. Ekam Sankhyam cha Yogam cha Sapashyati Yapashyati is what Krishna tells Arjun. You are going to see this here. Interestingly, here, the king Janak, Dharmadwaj, he is a student of Panchashikha, a great guru. And from Panchashikha, he has studied Sankhya, he has studied Yoga, and he has studied other Shastra, other Darshanas. Interestingly, Sulabha, okay, the Tridandi sannyasi Sulabha is also trained into all of these disciplines. She also says that. Now, as we have our personal favorite sometime, like for example, Aditya ji, I'll ask you yours. But in my case, I love all Shad Darshanas. I try to study them. But my natural excitement, natural preference goes toward Nyaya Darshana. That is not like because it is like the topmost or anything. It just for the kind of work I do, I find it more useful, more relevant, more of a immediate relevance or so on. So this is a discussion somewhat of a Sulabha coming from, although they both of them are expert in everything, she's coming from a Yoga Shastra perspective. Okay. So Yoga Sutra, like Patanjali Yoga Sutra that we know. Okay. And the Janak, who is also expert in all, but he is now coming with the emphasis of a Sankhya. Okay, and there is a discussion of this. There is no discussion about which is superior, which one is that. No, both are experts in both. It's like, as a student of science, typically if you are into science discipline, you have to study physics, chemistry, biology, like the basic three subjects are given. Now you may have your own preference, but you still ought to know all the subjects in order to understand the subject of your preference. Anyways, let's go further. Okay, so she's a Tridandi sannyasi. Okay. Now, I was looking for a good photograph. I couldn't find a very clear one, but I hope this will do for now. So this sannyasi individual, okay, uh, is holding in his hand that danda. Okay, it has got three sticks together bound. Okay, that's a tridandi sannyasi. Sannyasi. In modern times, what you will find is that um, the Vaishnava sannyasi will have a tridandi like this, and the Shankaracharya tradition, they will have a ekadanda. Okay, in fact, you have a descriptions of these both in Mahabharat. So this tradition is more than 8,000 years old, guys. Okay, it should give you a goosebump if you truly understand this. Now, something more to it. At one point, there is a description that Vasudev, I forgot whether it's a Vasudev or somebody else, gives the descriptions of this. And Aditya you are expert in that, and you may add something if you want to, where uh, the Vasudev explains to Dhritarashtra the Tridandi sannyasi and Ekadandi sannyasi, and Srila Prabhupada explains it beautifully. He says Tridandi is a Vaishnava tradition, Ekadandi is a Shankaracharya tradition, and while the Vaishnava tradition is a focus on a bhakti and whatnot, the Shankaracharya tradition, the focus is on a dhira, which is also very important, which is again goes back to Sankhya, if you see. Dhiras tatra na muyati. Okay. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaryam yavanam jara, yatha dehantara prapti dhiras tatra na muhyati. That is Sankhya Yoga. Okay. Second chapter. Dhira. So that dhira. And what is interesting, Aditya ji, is that I forgot whether it was a Vasudeva or whoever was talking to Dhritarashtra. But they said for Dhritarashtra, for you, not they're asking sannyasa, but the principle behind it, we suggest to you, or I suggest to you, the marga of a dhira. That is what the description comes in Mahabharata. One quick thing, Janaka also explains to Sulabha how he studied, how he came across his guru, Panchashikha. It's again very important. Like Aditya ji, I'm sure you get it and you may have this. I get these emails or some messages. Oh, the Nilesh ji, I want you to be guru. Okay. But then it's many times it's very interesting the conversation that follows. I would say, well, hey, I mean, you know what I do, study my work, study my books. If you have any questions, ask me those questions. But if you are truly talking of a guru, then one must read Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya Upadekshanti Te Jnanam. That Tadvidi Pranipatena, that Shraddha, okay, and then Tapasya, Tadvidi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya, but you have to do the Seva, which is that Pariprashnena. In order to ask a question, you have to do Tapasya. And the question has to be Saprayojan and Sandigdha, and we are going to see it right here, okay? But people will waste so much of my time, and in their words and things, they will be like a very soft and kind, and sir, please, 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 and I really appreciate you spending time. But if they are not sharp, and if they don't know how to take instructions from a guru, I'm not saying I'm a guru, but who they consider a guru, then they are wasting their time, they are wasting my time. Okay, that's actually happening right now. There is a one 2 3 events actually going on through email and through Facebook. And I try to be, Aditya, just you said, try to be polite, try to be considered, in my response and so on. But I have to be actually do the role of a guru, even if I don't want to, and be tough on this person, too heavy. I have to be heavy on this individual. Quickly, so Janaka, when he was ready, actually the guru came to him. This is another point to also realize that in a way, come to him, meaning not physically we are talking, you will come across a right person. Okay. So here, what happened? That guru was traveling. And again, Aditya we have done one episode on this, Varshikos Chaturo Masan, and how that beautifully connects the tradition of a Chaturmas all the way going back to Ramayana times 14,000 years ago, or the Mahabharata times 7,500 years ago. And the tradition, it's a living tradition. That's the beauty of Sanatana Dharma. And that's why many who look at Sanatana with envy, but also feel frustrated. And, because of their limited capability, instead of seeing the beauty of it, they just want to do things against this natural path. Okay. Varshikos Chaturo Masan. again, this Panchashikha, the guru of Janaka, had happened to stop in his kingdom during the 4 rainy months. Okay, whatever the time, we don't know what time it is. We know it's not the exact time of Ramayana because Siradhwaj was the Janaka. We know it is not the time of Mahabharata 7,500 years ago because it is before that. We don't know whether it is before Ramayana or after Ramayana, but we definitely know it is before Mahabharata. So definitely more than 7,000, 8,000 years ago. Okay. But the tradition is there. And we know it is there in Ramayana 14,000 years ago. It is there in Mahabharata 8,000 years ago. And it is still a very living tradition where a sannyasi will stay in one place during the rainy months. Now, again, Desha Kala Patra. This is relevant. This is contextual for an Indian climate because that's where the 4 months of monsoon rainy season occurs. This may not be relevant always for rest of the world. It's important to understand. And that's the beauty of a Sanatana. Sanatana Nitya Nutana. It is capable of refreshing itself, adjusting itself, modifying itself to match the time, place, and circumstances. Let's go further. And one more thing, because again, Adityaji, the Varna and Ashrama, not so much Ashrama, but Varna definitely are misunderstood. They are confused with the caste, which is essentially caste is a nasty thing, a European import. Okay, the class, okay, higher class, lower class, and so on and so forth. France also, people know that, right? That's how the left and right came. It is based on a class again, the farmers versus the elites, and so on and so forth. It is a nasty European import. Now, that is not to say the Varnashrama system of India was like a perfectly functional system. For a long time, it was. But any system, if we know again the Gibbs free energy equation, delta G equal to delta H minus T delta S, okay, the entropy of the universe tends to increase, the second law of thermodynamics. The things, if they are not fixed periodically, if they are not cleaned periodically, like our spring cleaning, the things will start accumulating, will catch dust. That has happened. But this is not to be confused with the caste or the nasty casteism of the Europe. Okay. So now here, very important to know what she's saying. Janaka is a king. Okay. So by his Varna, naturally, by his disposition, he is a Kshatriya. And she's saying, hey, you know what? Nasmi Varnottama Jatya na Vaishya na Varatata. I'm not a Vaishya, I'm not a Brahmin. I am, and the Uttama, it was Brahmana was considered Uttama Varna. I am actually also Kshatriya, she's saying. And I have taken to the Tridandi Sannyasa. So Kshatriyas is important. Our today's folks who consider themselves Kshatriya. And by the way, Adityaji, I should mention now that I just talked about it. Do you know this? Because people individually write to me, or in some context they end up telling me I know, and I'm so happy. If you know it, great. If you don't know, you will love to hear this. Many, and again, I'll just take this opportunity to thank all these military individuals from around the world, not limited to Indian services, but especially many folks of many officers in the Indian military services. Adityaji, listen to our talks on Sattology. I don't know if you knew that. And their families listen to our talks. Okay. And so our numbers may be what they are, but it is truly watched by people who really care. Okay. And so they just told me how fascinating those talks are. My point is, it's relevant for the Kshatriya, because look, Janaka is a Kshatriya and even Sulabha was a Kshatriya, and they had studied all the Darshana Shastras and they were studying. The studying is important. That's what she's saying at the last there, that she is from a Kshatriya background and has taken to Tridandi Sannyasi. Now, deliberately, I put the question marks here, as a homework for people or the people who will be eventually watching or our audience today. So now there is a conversation going on, and Adityaji, Sulabha says how the debate should be. She says how Janaka asks her a sort of poking questions: who you are, where did you come from, okay, and how did you attain this status, who is your guru, and so forth. What have you studied? Now remember, we have our biases, and same thing with Janaka. Janaka is not different. Janaka, possibly, it's not explicitly stated in Mahabharata, possibly a bit startled by seeing a young, beautiful lady into sannyasa ashram and a Tridandi sannyasi. And so he's asking very tough questions, you can say, okay, very personal questions. And with a smile, Sulabha is responding. He's saying, before even I give the answer, and she goes through a long discourse to Janaka, and we'll quickly do that without going into the too many details. She says, how the conversation should be, how the response should be, which Adityaji, it's a responsibility on you, me, and everyone who wants to consider themselves a intellectual Kshatriya to follow this. Now, it's not easy. It's a very high, it's setting up very high standards, but we have every reason to do our best to follow these. These are all worthy of imitation. How should be a response? It says, Saukshma, it should be a subtle, should have a finesse. When somebody asks you a question, how you respond. And, I will say I'm guilty. I'm not always capable of following all these. But one of the trick to follow all these is to keep them in front of you, become aware of them, then at least one at a time, we can start working on them. Those of you who already have read autobiography of Ben Franklin, great. If not, I would encourage all of you to read autobiography of Ben Franklin. Okay, how he wrote down 13 principles, and you can take those 13 principles and compare with what is said in Bhagavad Gita. They may not be exact, but you'll see a lot of similarity. And how he spent 1 week on refining a particular principle and his behavior related to that. Then he went 13-week program, then he came back to the first one, and he went through the iteration, just like the Bhagavad Gita is to be studied, never stop. Similarly, for anyone who considers oneself intellectual Kshatriya, who aspires to be an intellectual Kshatriya and propagate knowledge and so on, one must study this, keep in front of them, including ourselves, Adityaji, you, me. Okay, Sokshma, it should be subtle, it should be finesse. Sankhya, okay, always list the points in a debate. Just don't, so like, let people know point one, point two, point three. Okay, this is one. And therefore, at least I did one thing right, Aditya. When listing those points, look, in the our PowerPoint, I use the format, instead of a bullet, I use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. People can say, oh, there were 5 points there. Krama, anukrama, the order, the logical flow of arguments is important. Nirnaya, decisiveness is important. When somebody asks a question, try your best. It's not always possible. Give answer, yes, that's correct. No, that is wrong. Okay, the person may like it, may not like it. That is based on his instinct, her instinct, emotions. Do they ever reach the reasoning or not? But you do the job. Prayojana, like, ask the person, why are you asking the question? If I give you the answer, what are you going to do with it? Otherwise, don't waste my time, don't waste your times. And if you want to waste your times, definitely I'm not going to waste my time. Okay, then she says something else. I deliberately put this as a question mark. There are about 6 things there. Okay, upetartham bhinnartham na pravrutam na chadikam, not too much, not too little. Okay, and at the end of it, all the answers should be given, and the person's question should be clearly answered. Person should be happy. Now, the reason deliberately I put the question mark, I gave you a crude translation. Now, as soon as somebody reads that, this says, yeah, okay, so hey, I have asked you a question, now answer me, and it's your responsibility. No, that is utterly nonsensical. Okay, if you are asking a question, you should be more invested in knowing the answer than even the guru. Guru may give you a cursory answer. Guru may simply ask you to go study that book. Guru may ask you to go watch that Sattology YouTube video. Then you have to do it. If you don't understand it, you have to watch the second time, assuming you have a Shraddha in a guru. Otherwise, he or she is not your guru. Remember, this is so clear. Actually, the path is there. Now, as we go into the further discussion, she says, this is how I am going to respond to you. You will, she's so confident. Okay, this Tridandi sannyasi Sulabha is so confident. He is telling Janaka, who is also a realized person, who is also expert in Sankhya, yoga, and all that. She's saying, I assure you, I assure you that what I am going to narrate to you, the way I'm going to respond to you, it will not be verbose. It will not be complex. It will not be untrue. Okay? it, what I'm going to say, it will not conflict with the basic purposes of human life, the dharma, artha, and kama. It will connect with that. It will not be, my language will not be uncultured, my language will not be ungrammatical. Okay. It will, remember that we just did there, newnam. It won't be deficient, it won't be too brief, but it won't be verbose, like we looked at the number one there. Okay, it will, the strain, there will be not strain usage, there will be no forced language, which means what? If somebody, she doesn't know something, she will say, I don't know that, I don't know the answer to that. Or she says, this something, I have experienced it, but it is not something that can be described in words, like describing atma. We do that in a neti fashion. Okay, we just cannot describe what it is. We can describe to some extent, but not the whole extent. She says, my tone won't be arrogant. Okay, now that's, she's saying, yeah, I will tell you, you're wrong there. Now that's not arrogance, but in our times, our Kali Yuga, which is with us for now 7,500 years plus, somebody tells you you are wrong, the person thinks he or she who tells you that is arrogant. Instead of feeling thankful, suppose you're getting ready to go out, to your classes or whatnot, or just outside for a social gathering, or even otherwise, just after your shower, and you stand in front of the mirror, and you see some black mark or some colored mark on your face. Now, if you have done it deliberately, different story. But when you look at this and you say, oh my God, okay, thanks. I'm glad I saw this. And then you may remove it. Okay. Now you don't get angry at the mirror and you break the mirror. Similarly, when somebody is telling you that you are wrong, you don't have to be angry about it. If you still don't agree with it, because, the person who is telling you may not be intelligent. The person who is telling you may not be knowledgeable. So fine. You just ignore that person. Don't bother. If you have a Shraddha in that person, in that case, take that advice to heart. You may act on it, you may not act on it, depending on what you think correct. Finally, the freedom of thought, freedom of action is up to you. But there is no reason to be arrogant about it. Or when somebody tells you you are wrong, or you are so foolish you don't understand what is being said, what you are claiming is wrong, like we see in the debate on the dating of Mahabharata Ramayana, the person will suddenly get arrogant. I mean, right away they will get arrogant. The tone, everything, they will start become abusive, go on a tangent, digressions, except the subject that is being discussed. Okay, the response shouldn't be incomplete. If you choose to give a response, either give a full response or don't give a response saying, hey, this takes a long time, I'm not going to give it. She's saying, hey, you know what I'm going to tell you will have all these conditions met. It won't be incomplete, it won't be ambiguous. And whatever I'll be narrating, okay, that nishkaranam ahetukam, it won't be without reason, it won't be baseless. There would be a evidence to back it up. Okay. And then she says, while making a statement, one should not be affected by the following emotion. When you participate into something, when you want to, if you want to become an intellectual kshatriya, it cannot be driven. Adityaji, you made a good point that the Sanatanis have always given a very reasoned response, calm response, peaceful response, thoughtful response. Now, it can be misunderstood by less intelligent people. Okay. But it is a responsibility for everyone, whether they understand it or not, or whether they accept it or not, or whether they follow it or not, that your participation, your response, your interaction in a debate is not driven by kama, krodha, bhaya. You talked about the bhaya. Should we feel a fear? Our interaction, our willingness to engage into something should not be driven by bhaya. No, it should not be driven by a fear. What fear? At the end of the day, everyone has to die. Like today, whoever is talking here, like Aditya and myself discussing, hundreds of thousands of people who have been listening, eventually will listen to the YouTube. Everyone is going to die. That is certain. Okay, so what kind of fear we are talking? It should not be driven by lobha, dainya, self-pity, okay, anaryata, disgrace. That's where the word anarya comes. It's not a race like the Western Indologists are thinking for many years. And it's of course agenda driven, but still they don't want to give that attachment out of a fear. Their careers will be destroyed. Well, their careers are destroyed. Okay, they are going to go away. It's just a matter of time. And every Sanatani has to decide what to do. Not ask other person a question when the textbooks will change. Ask the question, what are you doing to change the textbook? And there are many ways to do it. You can contribute in a certain way. You can read the textbook to find out what is wrong. You can make a chart and find out what should be the correct replacement text and so on. Do not expect, some of these things are so basic, you don't need the experts. Okay, the experts are few and they don't have all the resources or a time, money, everything is not there. Anaryata, Re, Shame, Anukrosha, and Mana. So she's saying, you know what, that it should not be driven by this. And she's saying that her conversation, her advice, her discussion with Janaka, Dharmadwaja, will not be driven by any of these. Now, what is interesting there is she's also saying how should a ideal discussion should take place, and through her own examples, she illustrates that. She says during the course of a discussion, when the speaker, the listener, and the words spoken agree with one another without conflict, then the meaning comes out clearly. Now, sometime what happens, Aditya, I'm sure here it may happen, but when I go out and give a public lectures, right? Some person, as soon as I even said describe the subject, like this afternoon, I'm also talking to West Coast, in San Francisco, through distance, of course, through the modern technology. The example is like, suppose I start saying, what is the subject? The dating of Mahabharat. And immediately the person says, yeah, but what about the dating? I mean, Mahabharat is mythology. Now the person is going with his or her instinct, his or her ignorance, arrogance, stupidity. The point is the person is not even listening with an open mind. So that's why saying during the course of a discussion, what is required is that the speaker, the listener, and the words spoken, they should agree with one another without conflict, which is to say, first at least understand, like Stephen Covey, whatever says, first understand, then be understood. Even that is a Purva Paksha. First understand what the other position is and not just get affected by your a priori held convictions, whether right or wrong, a priori held biases, a priori held dogmatic assumptions. You should not allow yourself to be biases. If you want to learn something new, you have to come with that empty and a fresh brain. Okay, that's what it is being emphasized here. Agree with one another without conflict, then the meaning comes out clearly. This is what Sulabha is saying to Janaka. Now, this is in Mahabharat Shanti Parva. We talked about Bhagavad Gita as 700 shlok long essence. Okay, the gist of the Mahabharat, the philosophy that is there in the Mahabharat, and you can see the connection being made. The next verse that I have quoted at the bottom, many of you, the students of Bhagavad Gita, would know this. Anudvega karam vakyam satyam priyahitam chayat swadhyaya bhasanam chaiva vangmayam tapa uchyate. Some of you may be able to relate to this. Okay, this is from 17th chapter. Okay, I think 15 or so. Anudvegakaram vakyam satyam priyahitam chayat swadhyaya bhasanam chaiva vangmayam tapa uchyate. Now just see how much similarity is there. Speaking words that are truthful, pleasant, beneficial, and not causing distress or anxiety, as well as the study of recitation of scriptures, which is to say, whatever the person is saying is a evidence based on a study and a deep study, that is that recitation, deep study of the ancient text. Okay, and that is the austerity of a speech. And why do the austerity of speech? Because that then solves the problem. Okay, that brings elucidation, that makes people intelligent. Okay, quickly. And I'm fast forwarding. Then a long discussion goes on where Sulabha explains many things to Janaka, who himself is very knowledgeable. What a wonderful discussion that would have been. And we get a glimpse of it in the Mahabharata, not the whole story, because Bhishma is re-narrating that katha, that story to Yudhishthira. But what we have been given the final outcome. Remember, at the end of it, Saprayojana and Sandigdha, the doubt should be removed and the ultimate goal is achieved. Janaka had asked many questions. Dharmadhvaj Janaka, okay, the Janaka whose specific name was Dharmadhvaj, not any random Janaka. He listened to this whole thing and the final outcome is beautifully given. Ittetani savakyani, okay, hetum antyarthavanticha, hetum, I may be splitting it wrong there. And basically the description saying, Shrutva Nadi Jago Raja, Janaka listened to this all carefully understood the reasoning about it, understood what his purpose, all the questions he had asked, and he was satisfied. There was nothing else for King Janaka to ask, and he actually became Mauna. He did not say anything. Okay, how beautiful. But remember here, the important point is that the both individuals who were participating into this conversation, into Samvada, Vada, they were qualified. That's why this was possible. If that's not the case, then we are going to end up with a Jalpa or Vitanda. That is what we saw another time. Quickly, Shuka and Vyasa Samvad, I'm not going to go into the details. Shuka is the son of Vyasadeva. Again, it's a beautiful story, how he was born and so on. And Shuka Goswami also had studied all of them. He has studied Sankhya, he has studied yoga. The Darshana Shastra is of that prime importance. Okay, it is one must. These are like a basic tools. If somebody wants to do agriculture, the person should know the basic agriculture, how to use the pick and how to, if they're doing plow, how to use the plow and just the basic things. If you are a computer scientist, then you should know how to use the computer, how to use the programming language, how to formulate it, where to store the data. It's like this. For any intellectual Kshatriya, the knowledge of Darshana Shastra is a must. To what extent you will study depends on your time, place, your resources, and the flexibility you have. But some basic understanding must be there. Anyways, so here, I'll just translate, and Aditi ji, if you want to translate in English, that would be great. But अत्यंत नास्तिक मनुष्य केवल इस लोक के स्वार्थ को चाहते हुए शरीर में मांस और रक्त को बढ़ाने वाली चेष्टा ही करते रहते हैं। पारलौकिक कार्यों की ओर से तो वे सदा सोए ही रहते हैं। This is a situation given of a average individual. Most of them think, and this is a good definition of a Nastik. नास्तिक इमीडिएटली भी थिंक, अरे मुझे भगवान में विश्वास है तो मैं आस्तिक हो गया. नो, it must be shown through your actions. Okay, and this namaskar into the front of a murti, great, that's a start, but that is a start, that is a shraddha virya smriti samadhi prajna. Bhai, your journey is a long journey, you have just begun, or you might have begun. Okay, but a good definition of a nastic, the person may just force on doing the push-ups and sit-ups. The yogasana should be there, but right, very important, hatha yoga. But hatha yoga is the beginning, it's not the end, guys. Okay, those are our yoga trainers. There's a lot more to go. I mean, you are doing this so that you can do many other things. You can sharpen your intellect and so on. So that discussion comes into this samvada between Vyasadeva and Shuka Goswami. But Shuka Goswami eventually to another jana. Okay, and Mahamuni. Okay, that's fine. I'll just skip through that. And what we are saying is, remember these experts that everyone we saw actually, Sulabha, Janaka, another Janaka, Vyasadeva, Shuka Goswami, I mean Panchashikha. Okay, the Sulabha's guru's name is not given, but whoever they were, they all were experts, well studied into all the Darshana Shastras. Okay, that is the description is given. Sankhya Yoga. Another important point, they are not saying one is better than other. This is what the many times, like Vedantins will fight, oh, Sankhya is inferior, and because they will read some 2 lines of Shankaracharya's commentary, or Sankhya is like, no. Just see, I mean, the Shankaracharya uses Sankhya more than anyone else. Shankaracharya uses Nyaya. Because see, it is like studying biology with the help of chemistry and physics. It is like that. The biology may be complex, and in order to study, still you're going to use the laws of physics, and still you're going to the understanding of chemistry. So Shankaracharya, when he's talking about the Vedanta, and Vedanta is not of a one kind, Kevala Advaita, but there is a Vishishta Advaita, Shuddha Advaita, doesn't matter. These are like frameworks to study in a certain way. But all of them are forced to use Sankhya and Yoga. If you look at Sri Madhvacharya, he's expert in Yoga Sutra, in Sankhya Sutra, Vaisheshika and everything, Nyaya. So is Shankaracharya. Okay, it's very important to understand that these are all our basic toolkits, and they should be used, not the toolkits used by the leftist whole group there. Okay, so now we see this here, these experts are talking, but when they are discussing, they may put an emphasis on something, and therefore I said Sulabha is talking from a yoga marga. If I had time, I would have gone more detail into it. We don't have a time. And Janaka is kind of responding or asking the question, taking a position from a Sankhya perspective. But this is not like a black and white. There is nothing black and white. Okay. They are just like if you start studying physics and chemistry and eventually biology, I'm saying eventually because it's more complex, what do you find? A periodic table, for example, to understand the periodic table, you have to know physics, but you have to also know chemistry. Okay. And to understand biology, you have to know physics, you have to also know chemistry. There is a biochemistry and there is a biotechnology, biophysics. So you have to understand this, you have to understand this. That's the same case here. But important thing is they are not fighting against each other. But people of low intellect foolishly think, oh, I am this and now I don't need that. Nothing like this. Okay. And this is I'm going to end with this last verse from Bhagavad Gita. Yat Sankhye Prapyate Sthanam Tadyogairapi Gamyate. The ultimate objective that is achieved through the study of a Sankhya. That's the beauty again of a Darshana Shastra, or beauty of this different path of a Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. You can pick anyone. You soon realize that everything else is also part of this package, but your emphasis on one particular thing, either Jnana, Yoga, Bhakti, Jnana, etc. And any of that particular path with a specific emphasis, you can still achieve your objective. And one example here, this is from fifth chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, I think it's 5.5. Don't count me on that, but from fifth chapter, Yat Sankhye Prapyate Sthanam Tadyo Gairapi Gamyate. The ultimate objective that is achieved, the final objective, ultimate destination, let's say, is that is achieved by Sankhya is also achieved by Yoga. Krishna is saying to Arjun, therefore, ekam sankhya cha yogam cha ya pashyati sa pashyati. The person, therefore, understand the unity of these different darshanas, truly sees, truly understands, truly comprehends. Otherwise, it's a chaos. Otherwise, it's just the foolishness going around. Okay. Quickly, those of you who want to know more about my work or some of these things that are being discussed, or especially as now I have not discussed these into these books, I have applied them. I have made use of a Vaisheshika. I have made use of a Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa, all of them, Tattu Samanvayat. Eventually, we have to bring this together. That is from Brahma Sutra. All of them are made use of in researching the work, and then those research was basically covered in these books. So if you are interested, you should definitely consider learning this. You may not always see the word Sankhya there, but the knowledge of a Sankhya is used. Remember Anukram, for example, Sahacharya, okay, association, Prithakkaran, okay, splitting. First we have to split the things before bringing them together. Prithakkaran, Vargikaran, classification, then Ekikaran, then unification. Then you have to understand Karya Karana Bhav, okay, the causal relationship. Why Arundhati walked ahead of Vasishta? If Bhishma lived on the bed of arrows for 98 days from the 10th day of the war to the day of winter solstice, what does that mean for the dating of the Mahabharata? That is Karya Karana Bhav. That particular piece of data, how it leads to a certain conclusion, that is a Karya Karana Bhav. Okay. Or why it leads to a certain conclusion. Okay. That is a Karya Karana Bhav. That is a Tarka. That is all there. That is employed, used in an applied way, and that's how these three books are written. They are all available in Kindle, available in paperback on Amazon. If you are in India, of course, those three books in Amazon, they are still available there, but you have a better, efficient, and better quality, actually, the quality of the book that you'll be holding in your hands. And of course, you'll pay a lot less if you are in India to get these books from Subbu Publications, www.subbupublications.com. If you are on a Twitter, at Subbu Books, and so on, take advantage of this. Aditya with that, I am going to stop and we can conclude.
कार्य कारण कर्तृत्वे प्रकृति हेतु रुच्यते पुरुष सुख दुःखानां भोक्तृत्वे हेतु रुच्यते. Very clearly explained that we are responsible for our own happiness or distress. And but the karan for any karya is the prakriti through guna. And so we should neither blame ourselves, but at the same time we should be responsible for not doing.
Correct, which is sixth chapter, Uddharen Atmana Manam Natmanam Avasadayet Atmaiva Yatmano Buddhir Atmaiva Ripuratmana. You are your best friend, you are your worst enemy. You decide how you want to be, right?
And the same logic works in the adhyatma, like in yoga.
Hmm.
And the word yoga is so includes everything as well as excludes everything. It's simultaneously one and different.
Yeah. This is the verse I quoted is from that Adhyay 6, which is about yoga.
Yes, I know. I know. This morning I gave a class on the last shloka 6.47.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the and see, the thing is, people do not understand the meaning of sannyas many times, but people who are engaging in karma with a nishkam bhav are also sannyasis, because the sannyasi is in sannyasi means through actions. Like Arjun is called brahmachari, Krishna
Yes.
is called nastic brahmachari.
Yes.
And so it's a
And
like
Ashwatthama is not a brahmachari,
not a
one who is
brahmachari.
not married.
That's right. So the thing is, like, there are some subtleties involved, and unless you pay attention to smaller details, like what you have done very beautifully today, like you went into the smaller details of the shastra, that's where the messages are. The secret is in the conversation, not
Hmm.
in the, like, people think the we have to understand the whole with. No, you understand one conversation only. Pick and
Correct.
choose. Kapila Devoti Samvad,
Yeah.
Narad Brahma Samvad, like any one you understand, you'll
Yeah.
understand everything.
Yes.
You don't have to read the whole. Even if you understand why Sanjay is asking question to Dhritarashtra, or why Dhritarashtra is answering to Sanjay. Sanjay has said many things to Dhritarashtra. If you read
Yes.
Mahabharat, and Sanjay is held in high esteem by Vyasdev himself. He says
Correct.
either me or Shukadev, or maybe Sanjay understands or doesn't understand.
Correct. Yeah, very true. Just let me add something. Or what you just said, like even you can take one simple conversation, and absolutely, I will completely agree with you on that context and the subject that you started today. What's happening around the world, which is always important to connect. Even Dhritarashtra, the way Bhagavad Gita begins is very, very, what you say, poignant, very, it can give you many insights. He says, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yudsava. Dharma Kshetra is a Kurukshetra. Dharma by itself doesn't stand. Dharma needs a protection. Dharma Kshetra is a Kshetra of Kurukshetra. The demonic forces will always try to create adharma. That's why even when Krishna establishes, he's saying Krishna has established, he has established many times. And he says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. If the people, the followers of dharma, are not following their sadhana, the dharma will get a glani. Right? So dharma
Absolutely.
kshetra is a kurukshetra also.
Yeah, you don't become dharmic by mind. You become
Hmm.
dharmic through actions.
Yes.
Karma leads to dharma, not dharma leads to karma. And actually, vice versa also true, because you have to learn the codes of dharma, what is dharma, what is adharma. But majority of the times, the core essential values are all dharmic.
Yes. You get inspiration, from the
Inspiration.
knowledge, like, you get inspiration. So therefore that, as you said, the other way is also true. Shraddha has a karma shakti.
That's right.
But if your Shraddha is not refined with the dharma knowledge, then you can have a tamasi Shraddha and become a terrorist.
Anyway, thank you so much, Dilesh ji, and we can continue on and on. And what a wonderful presentation today. Very instructive for people. One thing I would like to say to all the viewers is do get Nileshji's books, and do get Jeevan Rao's book, which is, he did not ask me to promote it, but I'm promoting it because it's a very beautifully written Yuganta with multiple references to Kali Yuga. So namaste and thank you.
Namaskar.